Welcome back to another episode of Alleged Tea, hosted by your girl, Taylor-Nicole Limas, otherwise known as Lady Aguilera 2.0 on TikTok. So I just want to open this episode a little bit differently this time. Thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my OG followers that have been following me since the vet tech. I truly, honestly appreciate you guys. If you guys are liking the podcast, if you like what I have to say, if you like the episodes, if you like the story time, if you like the drama, please share, like, and subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me. And please don't forget to tag the Alleged Tea Instagram. So if you've made it this far, thank you. I know it's a whirlwind. You're like, Taylor, what the fuck is wrong with you? I ask myself that question constantly. I mean, who doesn't? Like, I think I've had the worst fucking years of dating in my 20s. Like, not that I'm not out of my 20s yet, but my last 3 years of dating have been absolute fucking trash. And we're going to go into why. I'm not a therapist, allegedly, but I do give advice on TikTok, and people are constantly asking me, Taylor, what the actual fuck? Why don't you take any of your advice? That does not mean that my advice is trash. It just means that I need to start taking it, okay? So we're going to do a little deep delve into my mental and why I am the way I am. So Taylor-Nicole Limas, welcome to your own episode. Okay, so I switched up the vibes this podcast episode. We're doing a little nighttime sleepover, comfy, cozy vibes, bitch. Because if I'm going to sit here and tell you all my deepest, darkest secrets, it's going to be nighttime. We're going to be cuddling. There's going to be a blanket. There's going to be popcorn. We're going to be getting nice, close, and personal. You know what I mean? One of the main things people have commented since releasing the 3 episodes of my trash dating life is, why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you choosing this? Why don't you take your own advice? It makes me so upset to know that you give this like strong woman advice and you don't even take it. And honestly, that deeply hurts my feelings, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm just going to preface this with a trigger warning that this is going to be a very deep episode. I don't even know what I'm going to get into yet because I'm just freeballing this right now. I'm just speaking to you as if you're one of my friends, and we're just going to get into it. So to answer that question, why do I not take my own advice? There's a lot of reasons why. But let's just discuss therapy for a second. For those of you that don't know, okay, I've been in therapy for about 1.5 years. I took a little bit of a break after I moved back home with my parents, so I'm not seeing her currently. What I didn't know about therapy, and therapy wasn't like widely discussed in my family or around me. I didn't know anybody close or personal to me that went to therapy. None of my friends openly talked about therapy. So I always thought that therapy meant you were literally batshit fucking crazy. Like, you were so not in this reality that like you needed to seek somebody to like discuss the fact that like you're not here. That's how I view therapy. Now, is that like a terrible way to explain therapy, a terrible way to view it? 100%, absolutely. Sometimes therapy is just for somebody to talk to. It doesn't have to be that deep. It doesn't have to be that serious. You don't have to have any type of mental issue, mental problem. You don't have to have a traumatic event happen to you. You don't have to have this terrible childhood. It could simply just be to talk to somebody. It could simply just be because you feel alone, because you feel like you're not enough, because you feel like you're a failure, or you feel like your life is pointless. Like, there could be so many reasons why people go to therapy, and it's not just because of that. And I know that sounds kind of silly to explain that. I'm speaking to child me in a way, because I know that there are younger people that follow me on here, and even older people that think that therapy is just useless and pointless. And it's not. And it's greatly, greatly, greatly helped me. But if there's one thing that I wish I could change in this world, is the fact that therapy is so expensive. It is literally, if I didn't have insurance, my sessions per session would be $350. $350 fucking dollars, bitch, per session. I was going weekly at one point. That's 350 times 4. That's more than somebody's fucking rents just for my mental. And these bitches stay living rent free in my head. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, fucking back on track, bitch. But the point that I'm trying to make is therapy is fucking expensive. So I'm going to give you the cheap version of it, and I'm going to tell you everything that my therapist told me about my fucking problems, and hopefully you can apply it to your life, and you could be like, you know what, bitch, thank you. I didn't have to pay $350 to fucking see some bitch to tell me what the fuck is wrong with me. You know what I mean? Not to call my therapist a bitch. I love my therapist. Love you, Jessica. The reason why I don't take my own advice is because I don't trust myself. And the reason for that being is always going to stem back to your childhood. Whatever issue you have right now, whatever issue you have, unless it was something traumatic that happened in your adult life, 90% of the time, it always goes back to your parents or your childhood. That's why every single time you go to therapy, the first thing they ask about is your parent dynamic, your family dynamic. Who raised you? Who is the parental figure in your life? Did you have a parent that abandoned you? Like, those are all crucial things to know when you're in therapy, because everything always goes back to your parents, and you have to unlearn the things that your parents taught you that maybe weren't the healthiest. I have a problem trusting myself. I know what the right answer is. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know that this person isn't bad for me. I don't trust myself. And because I have such strong people-pleasing qualities and such strong savior complex, that's like the trifecta, bitch. If you haven't heard, people pleasing, savior complex, I don't trust myself. So that's like the perfect combo for me to be put in a bad situation, and I need to fix those things before I start talking to somebody, right? Okay, I have these things that I need to fix first. This is how we're gonna break it down. So everything always goes back to your parents. So say you feel like you're not good enough, right? Say you feel like you're never enough, you're never gonna amount to something. If you follow that little seed, that little thread, right? You go and you keep asking yourself why. Like, why don't I feel good enough? Well, because I just think I'm gonna fail. Oh, well, why do you think you're gonna fail? Just ask the question why to yourself over and over again. That's what therapy is. Therapy is an introspection into your psychology, into your mental. The therapist is only there to aid you in questions to get you to figure yourself out. When I found that out about therapy, I was like, wait a second. She's just guiding me. Your therapist is never supposed to tell you the answer. You're supposed to find the answer yourself. You're supposed to come to that realization. Because if somebody just gives you the answer, you're gonna be like, no, bitch, what the fuck? You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. If somebody looked you, think about like when you were 13 and you thought you were in love, right? Imagine telling your 13-year-old self right now, bitch, he's not the one for you. 13-year-old you would be like, you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. Do you see what I mean? Like, you have to come to your own realization. You have to grow through that. And your therapist is just there to guide you in those moments in a professional way. Okay? Back to the whole parent thing. Your parents and your childhood dynamic is the answer for everything. If you just keep asking yourself, why? It'll always lead back to something to do with your childhood, something to do with your parents. And it doesn't have to be your blood parents. It could be your parental figure. It does not matter. It's whoever raised you, whatever happens in your life as a child deeply affects you. That's why I constantly recommend people The Body Keeps Score. It's a very triggering book, so don't just pick it up and read it. It's not like a coffee read. It's not something you read at the cafe. Because, bitch, you'll be sick to your stomach and you might cry. So read 10 pages every 3 months, okay? So how I like to explain our parents and what they passed down to us, because it really isn't our parents' fault. It's just that they were just using the tools that they were given, and they may not have had the best tools to begin with. So how I explain this to people, because after therapy, I genuinely view every single person I encounter as a wounded child. Every single person, how they act, how they speak, like how they speak to themselves, how they speak about themselves, how they speak about other people. I just look at them and I'm like, that's learned behavior. You learned that from something. You learned that somewhere in your childhood, you felt like that was okay to speak about yourself like that, or somebody made you feel about yourself like that. Therapy has really opened me up to see people as wounded children. Everybody's a wounded child, even our parents. How I can explain to you in the best way possible what we learned from our parents and what they passed down to us is the hammer and the nail metaphor, or the screwdriver and the nail metaphor. I made this up myself to help me better understand things. I explained it to my therapist. It has been therapist approved. She loves the metaphor, and she said that she would use it on her clients. When your parents were young, right? Your grandparents taught them that the best way to hammer a nail into a piece of wood was to use the back of a shoe. That's the best way. That's the best thing they got. The back of a shoe is the easiest thing to do. You just grab any old shoe and you just whack it, and the nail's gonna go in the piece of wood. And then your parents grow up and they go, okay, that's pretty good. That's how I know it. That's how I know to hammer a nail into a piece of wood, right? But they go throughout their life and they find out, wait a second, why am I using the shoe when I could use the butt of a screwdriver? The butt of a screwdriver is so much harder, and it'll be so much easier than using a shoe. The shoe takes forever. And your parents figure this out on their own without your grandparents' knowledge, right? They figured this out. They're like, okay, I figured this out on my own, and I'm gonna make it better for my children, right? So then your parents have you. Your parents say, okay, the best way to hammer a nail into a piece of wood is to use the butt of a screwdriver. Go, okay. And you hammer, and it gets the job done. Takes a while, your hand hurts. And you go about life, let's say 15, 16, 20 years, thinking that that's the best way to put a nail in a piece of wood, right? Now you go throughout your life. You see your friends, you see different people, you interact with different people, you go off to college, you get a job, you start talking to different people. And one day you're at your friend's house and he goes, oh, I need to hammer this nail in a piece of wood. And you go, oh, well, here's the butt of a screwdriver. And you go to hammer the nail in the piece of wood and your friend goes, why are you using that? Why wouldn't you use a hammer? Look at this. And they show you this new tool and you go, I've never seen that before. Now, you have the choice. Do you try something new or do you stick with what you know because your family showed it to you? But let's just go down the route that you try something new, okay? You go, oh, let me try. And it takes you a second to get a hold of the hammer. But once you got it, it's fast, it's quick, it's easy. Way faster than the butt of the screwdriver, right? Now you're excited. You just figured out something new. You have a new tool. You go, oh my goodness, I want to tell my parents. I want to tell my parents about this new tool and I could change them and show them that there's an easier way to do things, right? You get excited. You get so excited and you go home to your parents and you go, mom, dad, or whoever, grandma, grandpa, whoever raised you. I found that instead of using the butt of a screwdriver, you could use this thing. You could use a hammer instead. And it's so much faster and it's so much quicker. And I figured it out on my own. It was the best thing ever. 98% of the time, you're going to be met with anger and defensiveness by your parental figure. 98% of the time. And your parents going to look at you. Let's just say for hypothetical, for the story, they look at you and they go, why would you question my ability to do things? Why would you question my ability to do things? My entire life, my parents used a shoe and I made things better by using the butt of a screwdriver. I did that and I taught you that. And that's the way that things are going to be because I made things better for you. I did the best that I could and I even found a new inventive way without nobody teaching me to use the butt of a screwdriver, and you're coming here and telling me that that's not good enough? Now you feel defeated. Now you feel wrong for using the hammer. Why should I use the hammer? Well, I'm getting yelled at for using the hammer. My parents don't like the fact that I'm using the hammer. They're saying, keep it the way it is. This is how I made it better for you and that's the way it's going to stay. And so now you have to make a personal choice. Do you want to keep going and hammering a nail in with the butt of a screwdriver, knowing that it's not quick, it's not efficient, it doesn't really work, knowing there's another tool out there that does it a lot faster and a lot easier, but it's unfamiliar. Screwdriver is familiar, the hammer is unfamiliar, but you know the hammer's better. And you have to make that personal choice. That's the choice that you have to make. And the success of therapy is not whether or not you use the screwdriver or the hammer. It's how many times you pick up the screwdriver and think to yourself, I should be using the hammer. It's how many times you catch yourself not even picking up the screwdriver and you actually pick up the hammer. It's how many times you pick up the screwdriver and you go, you know what? And you might even hit the nail a couple times. You go, you know what? I don't want to do this. This is not the way I'm supposed to be doing this. A lot of the times we tend to measure our success in therapy by being healed. Like, oh, I want to be healed. And the whole point of the screwdriver and the hammer and the nail story is that you have to unlearn things that your parents taught you. And they weren't wrong in teaching you the things that they did. They were just doing the best that they could with the tools that they were given. You're given new tools. And sometimes your parents or your parental figures are not going to be so susceptible to accepting these new tools. Some people want to stay in their ways. Some people want to use the tools that they already have and they don't want new ones. And it's up to you to decide, do you want to keep in that line, in that generational thing, or do you want to make a different choice? And a lot of times in therapy, we like to measure our success on being healed, right? Like, oh, we're healed, or pick up the screwdriver, that means I'm not healed. And it's not that you're not healed. It's that you are now thinking in a different way. You're now changing your habits by noticing that you're picking up the screwdriver, putting it down, picking up the hammer. Just because you picked it up doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you're so familiar with it that it's a hard thing to unlearn, and you should be proud of yourself for going through the motions of unlearning those things for your future kids. You see what I'm saying? I'm sorry. This is making me a little bit emotional. I told you, girl, this was going to get deep. That's one of the main things that I struggle with. And that's why it hurts my feelings so deeply when people say things like, Taylor, you're choosing this, or like, they're not your type, they're your pattern, or, you don't even take your own advice. And it's like, God, do I wish that I could, and I'm trying so hard. I see it. It's gotten shorter, the relationships that I involve myself in, instead of wasting years of my life, right? It's gotten shorter. I notice things a lot quicker. I'm aware of things, but I'm still in this mentality of unlearning things that I haven't quite unlearned yet. And it's hard for me. It's hard for me to let go of things. Another aspect to all of this is a savior complex. I don't know if you have a savior complex. I hope to God you don't, because I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It is this idea that you could save somebody, that you could fix somebody, that you could change somebody, that you could show them the way, that you could lead the horse to water. And what I've had to come to learn is that it is not my responsibility. It's not your responsibility to fix somebody or to save somebody. It's not your responsibility at all. It is their responsibility to want to change, to want to be better, to want to be emotionally stable, to want to be the person that they want to be better, to be the best they can be. It's their responsibility. But I don't think that. I think that I can genuinely change people. I think I see somebody and, they have all these issues, all these problems. I will see one little tiny golden nugget of a good person in them. And I'm like, you could be that all the time. I know you can. And I'm going to show you. You just have to fix these things. It's not hard. That's been probably one of my biggest downfalls, thinking that I could change people and make them into a better person. And a lot of what my savior complex comes from, maybe you can relate to this, is that there were situations in, my life where I felt like I needed to be saved by somebody. So I'm trying to save that person. It's almost like a swap, like an Uno reverse, like, oh, I didn't get saved, so if I save you, I'll feel like I saved myself. You know what I mean? When in reality, the only way that you can save yourself and protect that like little girl or little boy in you is by setting boundaries. That's another thing I struggle with. It's really difficult for me to set boundaries with people because of the people pleasing. You see how everything goes hand in hand with each other? So the purpose of boundaries is to control your environment and to protect you. Not to control another person, it's to control what you experience. So for example, let's say somebody's yelling and swearing at you. Setting a boundary would look like, I understand you're frustrated. I understand that you're angry. I don't appreciate it when you scream and yell at me. If you continue to scream and yell, I'm gonna leave. If you would like to have a conversation, I think we should take 10 minutes to cool down and we can have a conversation. But if you continue to scream and yell at me, I will leave. You're giving options. You're saying, here, this is what I'm not okay with. You either can choose to calm down, take 10 minutes, we can have a conversation, or if you continue acting the way that you do, I'm leaving. Your behavior is not appropriate. That's a boundary. What is not a boundary is telling somebody what they can wear, telling somebody what they can and cannot do. Do you see how the difference, and I understand people get confused with this because I did too. I could not understand the difference between a boundary and a consequence. For the longest time, I kept saying things like, almost like giving an ultimatum. And I was doing it wrong and I didn't know I was doing it wrong. But it was almost like an ultimatum. Like, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this. It sounds very similar to saying something like, oh, if you continue screaming and yelling at me, I'm going to leave. Because to me, that sounds like the same thing. If you do this, I'm going to do this, right? But what I was doing was like, if you continue to do this, I'm going to punish you. Like, if you continue to scream and yell at me, I'm going to yell at you. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like a punishment. Whereas like the first one is kind of like protecting yourself, removing yourself from the situation. This situation is no longer serving either of us. Do you get what I'm saying? Boundaries is a really hard thing for me to do. One of the strongest people are people that could set boundaries and stick by them. I have a huge problem like slipping on my boundaries, like not sticking by them. It's one thing to set a boundary, but you have to stick by them. That's the goal right there. That's the finish line. You could set boundaries all day, but if you don't stick by them, you will still be treated the same way. People treat you how you allow them to treat you. You accept what you allow and you allow what you accept. And if you're allowing somebody to treat you like that, right? Or you don't want to allow somebody to treat you like that. So you set a boundary, but you don't stick by that boundary, they're going to continue treating you like that. They're never going to learn. And you only teach people how to treat you based on how you treat yourself. It's all connected. I understand it on a logical perspective. I get it. I get how it's all attached to each other. And that if you follow the thread all the way down, when you're like, okay, well, why do you feel like you can't set boundaries? Okay, why do you feel like you can't set boundaries? Answer the question. And then whatever your answer is, ask yourself why and why and why and why over and over again. And just write down your answers and you'll get to the root of it. You'll get to the reason why. So let's do the exercise on me, right? Why do I feel like I can't set boundaries? Because I don't want to cause problems. I feel like when I set a boundary, I cause a problem. Okay, why? Well, because people get upset when I set boundaries and they get angry and they get defensive. And I just don't feel like dealing with that. Why? Because it causes conflict and I just want to be at peace. Okay, why? Because I just would rather not deal with the problem as a whole. Like, I just don't want to deal with the problem than setting a boundary and having the like conflict that comes with setting a boundary. Okay, why? It's just easier. Why? Why is it easier? It's easier because it feels more comfortable that way. Why? Because that's probably all I've known. Why? Because that's just the environment that I think that I'm used to. Why? Because I think I grew up in a space that lacked boundaries. So you can see how quickly that can work if you just follow it down that path of just asking yourself why. You start to realize that the real deeper issue in all of that, boundaries are a really hard thing. They're really, really difficult. If you are walking around boundaryless, you're out here dating like I was, and you're out here interacting with people, you are susceptible to people taking advantage of you. They will take advantage. They will walk all over you. Setting boundaries protects yourself. You're like walking into a gunfight naked. You got nothing on you. You are gonna die, bitch. I really do just have the trifecta, huh? I have the trifecta. Beautiful. People pleasing is that as a child, hypothetically here, allegedly here, as a child, when you grow up in a household where you feel like you're a parental figure in certain situations, or you have to regulate your parents' emotions, or you're constantly looking at your parents' emotions to figure out what you're supposed to feel, it can kind of turn into a people-pleasing thing. So like, for example, if you're the type of person that can notice the slightest adjustment in your partner's mood or your parents' mood, it has a lot to do with your parents. Your parents are probably very emotionally reactive to the point to now you're looking for any type of mood shift to know how to base your mood off of. If you had parents that were quick to anger, quick to get upset, very hot-headed, you could also turn into like a people-pleasing type of mentality because you're looking for the best outcome, right? So think about it from a child's perspective. You don't know how your parent's going to react, right? So you're just trying to figure out which emotion to do to bring out the best reaction in them, right? Which in turn, as an adult, that's people-pleasing. You're just trying to be that thing to get them to react in the way that you want them to react, right? Do you get what I'm saying? With people pleasing, a lot of it for me has to do with guilt. Like, I feel guilty, like if I don't do something. And it could be something as small as like not showing up to a party, not going somewhere that I don't want to go. I could simply just not want to go somewhere. But if I told somebody I was going to go, I'm going to feel so guilty for not going. Or if it's something like, say it's out of my budget, I can't afford it, but I feel like I really need to go. Like, I could potentially put myself in the hole just to go with this person because I feel that bad. I just want to make that person happy. Again, if you follow down that why, you're basically, when you're people pleasing to the point to where I was at a certain point, you think other people deserve more than you. You put other people in front of you. So if there was just like a line of people and you had to like line them up due to importance, everybody's coming ahead of you. Every single person is coming ahead of you. Because you think that their reaction or how they feel is more important than how you feel. Because if you're doing something that you don't want to do, and you're doing it for the sake of another person's emotions or another person's feelings, you care more about their feelings than your own. When I realized this, when I realized that that's what I was doing, I realized that in a way, it's a form of emotional hurting yourself. When you put yourself in situations like how I was doing, right? And I know that they're not good for me. I know I'm not supposed to be in those situations. I know better than that. I'm emotionally hurting myself. And when you people please and you know you don't want to do that thing, but you're doing it anyways and it doesn't make you feel good, you don't feel aligned in that choice, it's not something you want to do, you're emotionally hurting yourself. You are. And where does that come from? Think about it. Where does it come from? It comes from your sense of self-worth. Why do you feel like you deserve to hurt yourself in that way? Why do you feel like you deserve something like that? And again, follow that string down to the why. It's like why? Keep asking yourself that, and it comes out to this outcome of like, usually has to do with your own sense of self and your own self-worth. What do you feel like you genuinely deserve? Because they say that like relationships are mirrors, right? On how you feel about yourself. If I'm in a string of shitty relationships, I'm accepting what I allow and I allow what I accept. So what am I saying how I feel about myself by allowing the behavior I've been allowing for the past 3 relationships I've been in? Now, given, and if you listen to episode 1, I didn't know about all that. I didn't know about the pictures and stuff. Towards the end, like the drilling, the asking questions, like at what point was I okay with being treated like that? At what point did I really stop caring and loving for myself where I allowed certain behaviors to be okay in my presence, to allow people to walk over my boundaries? And why did I do that? So we got the trifecta, right? We have people pleasing, a savior complex, and lacking boundaries. And the fourth one, to make it like, Thanos and all his rings, is my attachment style. So if anybody knows anything about attachment styles, bitch, we're about to get into it. Get comfy. So if anybody knows anything about attachment styles, the goal is to be secure, right? You want to be in a secure attachment style. Everybody does. That's the goal. That's the thing that you want, right? So when I first started dating my ex, the one that I had, Lala Man, that I dated for 1.5 years, which is in episode 1. If you want to go give that a listen, go right ahead. I was in an anxious attachment style, a super, super, super anxious attachment style, to the point where I was like almost kind of paranoid. Okay. And a lot of people didn't see this side of our relationship because I was still healing from my heartbreak 3 years prior, because I had made the mistake of thinking that, and a lot of people make this mistake, that when you go through a bad breakup or a heartbreak, you think solitude is going to heal you. You think, oh, if I'm just alone, if I just take a long enough break, I'll be healed, I'll be fine. But that's not true. You have to do the work. And not only that, other relationships heal you. They point out things. You can't avoid relationships for 6 years and then all of a sudden expect to get into a relationship without doing any work. Because what ends up happening is, and what happened to me, is that you go through heartbreak and then you spend 3 years on your own, and then you jump into a relationship and you think that you're fine. You did no work. What's going to end up happening is those same things, those triggers from your previous relationship are going to show up in your new one. It does not matter how much time passed. A lot of people say time heals, but working time heals. Putting in work during that time heals. Not just time in general. You have to put in work to fix yourself. And so at the beginning of our relationship, I was very, very paranoid. Like, I felt like I was constantly getting cheated on, which, does not help with my paranoia, but I was getting cheated on. This is why the whole thing is such a mind fuck, because a woman has a strong intuition. I had a strong intuition something was going on, but I was also super anxious. So I was constantly questioning my reality at all times, okay? So to get to the point here is that in the beginning of our relationship, I was super anxious. Very, very, very anxious. And I worked on healing that. And I had gotten to a point where I was able to express myself and my emotions clearly. And I was moving towards a secure attachment style. But then after everything that came out about my ex and everything that happened, everything that he did, I ended up moving to a disorganized attachment style. And this is common, actually. You can move around attachment styles depending on what situations that you've been through. There's many different attachment styles. And to figure out which attachment style you are, you can ask a therapist, you can Google them, read the qualities of each attachment style and pick which one most identifies with you. Or you could take a test. There's a bunch of online tests that you could take, right? After everything that happened with my ex, I moved to a disorganized attachment style. I don't like to use the word bad and good because everything's really subjective. It's honestly how you look at it. But it's one of the harder ones to deal with because what it is, what's up? Got your man in the club. God damn. Okay, sorry. What it is, wow, I am not masking my pain with humor. Okay, first let's define anxious attachment style. So an anxious attachment style is like feeling needy. You're like almost kind of like paranoid. You think something's going on all the time. Like you feel like your partner's cheating on you. You're questioning things. Like you want to know where they're at all the time. You need constant communication. Like that's kind of what an anxious attachment style is. That's what I was. That's how I looked at it because that's how I was acting, right? Disorganized attachment style. And it's so weird. It is so weird to me because for the longest time, I kept saying, I don't understand why. And it was with Jax and Llama Man, okay? I'm like, I keep doing this push-pull. And he even said it to me. My ex has said it to me, like, you do this like push-pull thing and it's so confusing, right? The other name for this is the fearful avoidant attachment style. If you look it up on TikTok, it's gonna get the worst fucking reviews, bitch. Don't fucking judge me. I'm trying to fix it. A lot of my exes, after la man were telling me, like, you do this push-pull thing, and I was like, I know I do it, but I don't know why I'm doing it. I would talk to my therapist about it, explaining it to her, and I was like, what I do, and I'm so self-aware, bitch, like, I know what I'm doing when I'm doing it, but it's like I can't stop myself because I feel this need, which I'm going to explain to you in a second. Because my therapist is always looking at me like, bitch, you know what you're doing. You know what to do. Why are you here? Like, do the thing you're supposed to fucking do. But it's because I don't trust myself. So I need validation from another person to tell me, like, yeah, that's the right thing to do. Like, that little voice in my head, that bitch is she's on mute, basically. I could barely hear her. She's never telling me, like, oh, yeah, that's the right move. Go ahead, do that. She's really not saying shit 90% of the time where I'm like, okay, is this the right thing? I don't know. What I tend to do is to go back to the hammer and screwdriver. I tend to go back to what's familiar, and that's not always the right thing. But because I have issues trusting myself, what feels familiar feels right. And that's not always how it should be. And what feels uncomfortable feels wrong. And so I'm trying to better identify with that. I had told my therapist, I was like, I do this thing. I was like, and I don't know why I do it. And I wasn't really super educated on attachment styles at this time. And I'm like, she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I want the person to be super close to me. And then they get close to me. And I get like overwhelmed and scared. And I feel like if I let them in, there's a possibility of them leaving. So instead of telling them that or doing anything about it, I run away. I'll pull away like super far back to the point where they're like, what's going on? And I almost get to the point of like wanting to break up with them. I want them to chase me, like to come at me and be like, no, don't leave. Like, I love you. I'm so in love with you. And the minute they get close to me, I'm like, okay, I feel better. And then the cycle happens again, over and over and over again. And it's a terrible thing for both parties because, one, I'm hurting this individual, making them constantly feel like I'm never going to stay. I'm constantly wanting to leave, right? And it's also not good for me because I don't feel safe or secure. They don't feel safe or secure. It's just not a healthy dynamic, right? My therapist was like, what do you think is the solution to that? And I said, I have to be vulnerable. I have to feel, like I'm safe with the person. And when I say vulnerable, I don't mean tell this person my deepest, darkest secrets and tell them my life story. When I say vulnerable, I mean like, hey, I'm feeling this type of way because of XYZ. That's how you determine how like a partner is good for you, is how they respond to conflict, how they respond to your feelings. Are they validating? Are they invalidating? Right? And so she's like, yeah, why don't you try that? And that's kind of where the whole Jax thing kind of came into play, because I was trying to figure out how to fix that push-pull dynamic while actively trying to figure out what was going on between him and his ex-girlfriend. So as you can see, it's a very messy dealing, trying to figure out how to heal these past wounds and traumas and try to be the best person I could possibly be, but while also dating these shitty ass men. You know what I mean? Like, it would be completely different if I was trying to be the best person and the other person could see that I'm trying to be the best person and they're also working on themselves, then we could power couple through this shit. You know what I mean? But that's not always been the case, and nor do I ever think that it's anybody else's responsibility to heal with me or to heal my problems. Like, I know that that's my responsibility, and I'm very well aware. That's where all of that comes from. So when people say things like, Taylor, you don't take your own advice, like, God, do I wish I did. I wish I could go into my own brain and be like, stop doing this shit. Like, don't do that, Anybody that's dealing with similar situations to me, don't let anybody make you feel like shit for making the choices that you made. Everything is always going to be a learning experience. Everything thus far has been a learning experience for me. I have learned to love myself better and harder. I've learned to prioritize myself. I've learned to be a better person, a better friend, a better lover, a better individual, a better citizen to fucking society. Like, I know how to communicate my feelings correctly. I've learned to be vulnerable in certain situations. I truly, honestly don't believe that there's a bad choice that you can make as long as you're learning from it. Don't get me wrong, girl. I am tired. A bitch is tired. Like, you don't understand how badly I just want to be in a relationship where the other person understands me on such a deep level that it's just quiet, like it's just peace. I want like that soft love. No yelling, no arguing. Like, almost like a whisper, like, baby, what do you need? What's going on? What's wrong? How are you feeling? Because I feel like if I'm met with that, I will reciprocate that. And I feel like everything I have been met with thus far has just not been good. It's just been like really intense and angry and forceful and negative energy. A lot of the times too, I feel like because of the type of person that I am, and I'm always trying to be happy, I'm always trying to look at the positives of things, I attract energy vampires who see me and then think, oh, like, she's so happy all the time, like I want to steal some of her light. And I don't mean light like spotlight. I mean like light as in like happiness and joy and just being excited for life on a day-to-day basis. Like I feel like I attract people who want to take some of that from me and in turn end up draining me. Do you know what I'm saying? How I think about it and how you should think about it too, because I know at times, like, trust me, girl, I have felt so defeated in this journey of finding my one and only true love. I really have felt defeated. Like, damn, how many fucking trials and errors do I have to go through to figure this out? But what I honestly think is that I'm genuinely becoming a better person for the person that I'm meant for. And that makes me really excited. God can put me through so many trials and tribulations, and I still, at the end of the day, genuinely think that there is somebody out there for me that will love me endlessly. I genuinely think that with my full chest. I know I'm not the perfect person, and I know I'm probably not the perfect person right now either, but I truly, honestly still believe in that fairy tale love. Like I do. I'm sorry, girl. I'm sorry, bitch. I'm a lover at heart. Like I really am. I genuinely think there's somebody out there for you too. And I don't think I want to be that person for other people that is like, damn, this girl's been through it and she still believes in love. She still believes that there's love out there like that. Like, yes, the fuck I do. And I'm going to find it. And you're going to witness it. And we're all going to be going to the wedding together, bitch. Fasten your seatbelts. Because it's about to be a wild fucking ride, bitch. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I just honestly hope that somebody could relate to this. Healing, going through therapy, unlearning this, especially when you're the only one, like, going on a healing journey in your family or in your friend group or whatever, it feels so lonely. But I just want you to know that you're not alone and that there's other people out here trying to heal, trying to better themselves, trying to be the different. I just want to let you know that I'm proud of you and I love you. And if nobody's told you today, you're doing an amazing job. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Another episode of Alleged Tea. And remember, baby, it's all alleged. Love you.